Here at Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. We're for today, guys, is next installment of a series I've been doing lately. It's my top 20 albums of each subgenre. I know before you guys come at me in the comments, I know grunge, as well, the one I'm doing today, is not metal per se, but it's still a big subgenre for me. It's what I listened to prior to getting into metal, and I love a lot of albums from this subgenre, and I wanted to include it in this series. I know it doesn't exactly fit, but I still wanted to put it just because there's so many albums that were influential for me and a big thing on the scene at the time. So I got 20 albums here, guys. I'm going to jump right in. I kind of rated them in order of what I listen to the most now as well as back then. So the top 10 are going to be a lot of repetition, like multiple albums from the same band. So you'll kind of see that pattern when I get there. But number 20, I have the album Apple by Mother Love Bone. This is their pretty much one and done, only full length they ever put out. But definitely a big band in the scene. This was released in 1990. They had a very grungy sound, kind of a glammy side of a version of it. But definitely a one and done project that kind of gets overlooked by a lot of people. I didn't come across this band until much later on. Probably in the early 2000s, I came across this band on YouTube, and just a really cool, grungy, kind of glam elements mixed in, some alternative rock, but just some really good stuff. And kind of a disclaimer, guys, before I get too much further, there's gonna be a lot of bands in this list that are post-grunge as well, like the second wave of grunge metal, or a lot of bands that came after the scene that kind of carried on that grunge sound, but mixed in some alternative sound, etc., into the late 90s. So number 19, I have the Melvins with Ozma. The Melvins were more of a sludge metal style band, but they did incorporate a lot of grunge metal elements on this album. But I included them on this list just because they're so influential on the scene, and a lot of people drew them as inspiration, like the Nirvana and the big bands all hung out with these guys and drew inspiration from them, and I had to put them on the list. And this is probably their most album that had the most kind of proto grunge sound in it. And number 18, I have Mudhoney Wedge. Definitely my favorite Mudhoney album is from '91. They just have that really traditional grunge metal sound, really good stuff. If you're not familiar with these guys didn't quite break as big as the other bands in the scene, but still a really good band. Love this album. Definitely check it out if you're not familiar. At number 17, I have Hole with Live Through This. And honestly, I'm not the massive Hole fan, but I really dug this album back in the day. I kind of fell off it later on in life, so I think that's why it's a little bit lower on the list. But there's no denying how big this album was at the time. Had big singles, and I just don't like Courtney Love. I think she's an idiot, to be honest. But this album was massive back in the day. I just don't really listen to it anymore now. And next here I got a band that came up in the late 90s that kind of carried on the sound, Days of the New, with their debut album. I think they put only 3 albums out. They were all self-titled, but just different color scheme. But this is the debut from 96, or 97, sorry, 1997. I always dug this album. It has a post-grunge alternative. A lot of acoustic stuff in this album, but it has all that darker, kind of depressive sound like that grunge had. Great songs like Touch, Peel, and Stand, The Downtown, Shelf in the Room. I still listen to this album to this day from time to time, and every time I do, it just makes me feel good. I saw these guys live. I think it was with Jerry Cantrell, or it was in the early 2000s, I think, with Jerry Cantrell and somebody else. But really good live band too. Just really good, fun music to listen to. Next in line we got here is the band Silverchair with their debut Frog Stomp. This was a massive album back in the day too, with songs like Pure Massacre, Tomorrow, Israel's Son. Just some really massive songs. This album got really high rotation for me back in the day. I still put it on from time to time, but I haven't listened to it much lately. This came out in 1995. Again, the kind of that post-grunge sound from Australia. But really epic album. I'm not sure how many copies it sold, but I know it's a massive album at the time, and the guys were really young. I think the band members were like 15 or 16. Like they're very, very young, but they wrote some really catchy, just good grungy alternative songs. Really good stuff. Number 14, I think it's Bush with 16 Stone. Again, grunge, post-grunge, hard rock kind of blend. This is obviously the band that has Gavin Rossdale in it, with massive songs like Come Down, Glycerine, just some big songs on this one. Little Things, Everything Zen, Machine Head was a massive single for them. I used to listen to this album all the time back in the day, like on repeat. Just a really good post-grunge album, really big singles and memorable tunes. And I think they wrote the song very quickly, like in a week. It's just one of those songs they kind of whipped together really quick and ended up being their biggest seller. And just a monster album that was released in 1994. Love this album. Next we got Smashing Pumpkins. Again, more on the alternative rock kind of side, art rock. But they do have a lot of elements of grunge in there, kind of depressive, down-tuned guitars, kind of sludgier sounding at times. But I always loved this album, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. It was their double disc album at the time. And for the track listing, Tonight, Zero, Bullet with Butterfly Wings, just some really good tunes on this album. Still listen to this day. Always been kind of my favorite Smashing Pumpkins albums. Good stuff. Next we got Stone Temple Pilots with Core. Band I used to really listen to quite a bit back in the day before I really got heavily into metal. This is from released in 1992, so I would have been 13 at the time. So yeah, it sounds about right. I think I got this when it was brand new. Really good band, memorable songs, Dead and Bloated, Wicked Garden, Sex Type Thing, Creep, Plush. Just some monster songs on this one. They sold a ton of records. And Scott Weiland, of course, on vocals, everybody knows. But yeah, just a killer album I used to play with high rotation back in the day. Good stuff. Next we got Pearl Jam with their second album, Versus. I love a lot of the early Pearl Jam stuff. I think I was into them until their fifth or sixth album. I kind of bought them as they came out. I was a massive fan. And then when I really got into metal, I completely dropped off of them and really stopped buying all their new stuff. So I just had their first, let me check here. For their albums, I think I have their first 5. Let me see here. Discography. Yeah, 10 Verses, Vitology, No Code, Yield. Yeah, the first 5 albums, and that's kind of where I fell off. In around 2000 is when I kind of stopped buying the new Pearl Jam records and kind of moved on to metal more. But I love Versus, some really good tunes on this album. My second favorite album from the band. I had to make my list for the grunge list. But songs like Go, Animal, Daughter, just some really good tunes on this album. Still listen to this day from time to time. Really good stuff. Next we got another album that's kind of controversial. It's kind of more on the alternative side, but they do have a lot of post-grunge kind of feel to their music. It's the band Live with their biggest hit album, Throwing Copper. This album was massive. I think it sold 9 million copies or 12 million or something. But just some massive songs like Selling the Drama, I Alone, Lightning Crashes was their biggest song. It's Over You, All Over You. Iris was a big one too. Love this album. Still listen to this day. It brings a smile to my face. Just brings back so many memories of listening to it. Even my brother was into this album, and he's not even a rock guy. But always loved their sound, had a really cool, distinct sound, and still love these guys to this day. All their albums are really good. Next in line here we got here is Soundgarden with Bad Motorfinger. This is almost a metallic album to me. It's almost like a heavy metal album. I never overly considered Soundgarden and Alice in Chains to be overly grunge. They're more metallic and more on the metal side to me, but they're kind of lumped in with the scene at the time. So I put them on this list. Bad Motorfinger is definitely their heaviest album. Rusty Cage, Outshine, Jesus Christ Pose are some of the standout tracks. But just a really good album, really heavy, probably my favorite from the band. Well, it's probably second favorite from the band because I have the other one a little bit further ahead. But definitely their heaviest album for sure. And next we got at number, I think 7? No, 8. 8, we have the One and Done Project, Temple of the Dog. This had Chris Cornell and Eddie Vedder, Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder, and Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. It's kind of a compilation or collaboration album. Really cool album. I used to listen to this back in the day all the time. The song "Hunger Strike" is the big song from the album. But when I heard two lead singers from two of my favorite bands at the time were putting out a project, I was super pumped and was super excited, and I just love this album. It's a classic. Unfortunately, it was only a one and done, but it's a classic all time from the scene. At number 7, I have another Stone Temple Pilots album, Purple. Cool artwork on this one. In terms of track listing, Vaseline was the big song, Interstate Love Song, Unglued was a big song as well. Just a really good song, probably my favorite from the band. Most memorable songs, short and to the point, very grungy, very alternative. Just some really good tunes on that one. At number 6, I have Nirvana with In Utero. It is their third and final studio album, unfortunately. They only had, like I said, the 3 albums because Kurt obviously ended his life very young. But, Heart-Shaped Box, Serve the Servants, Rate Me, Dumb, Scentless Apprentice is really good. All Apologies, just a killer album. Definitely a little bit different sounding than Nevermind overall, but really dug this album. Still listen to it a lot back in the day. Don't put it on quite as much lately. Normally I reach for Nevermind over this currently, but still a really good album. At number 5, I went with Alice in Chains' self-titled. It's their third studio album with songs like Again, Grind, Heaven Beside You, Rush Away. I think Again was the first song I ever heard from this band. When did this come out? 95, so I would have been 16. Yeah, I must have got into this band a little bit later. But I think Again was the first song I heard from these guys. It was on a Big Shiny Tunes compilation album. And I went back and listened to their actual studio albums and loved them right away. But yeah, really good album, had to make the list. Number 4, I went with Soundgarden, Super Unknown. Definitely their biggest album in their discography, with so many iconic tracks like My Wave, Fell on Black Days, Black Hole Sun, Spoon Man, Kickstand is a big song, Limo Wreck, the title track, Mailman. Just so many great songs, 4th of July. Really killer song, that really depressive, kind of detuned guitars and really sludgy kind of sound. Chris Cornell's vocals are insane, soar over the top, love his vocals. Had to make the list, it's an all-time classic album. Again, this sold 10 million copies or something. It's a huge selling album, monster album. At number 3, I went with another Alice in Chains album, Dirt, my favorite album from the band. Some of my favorite songs from the band, Them Bones, Rooster, Angry Chair, Wood is on there too, Down in a Hole. Love these songs, love this album, just heavy, really memorable. Lane Stanley's vocals are probably the best they've ever been on this album. And Jerry Cantrell's guitar work and backing vocals are great. And just love this album, it's an all-time classic. Number 2, I went with the debut from Pearl Jam, 10. Monster album in my childhood. Listen to this album almost every day with songs like Once, Even Flow, Alive, Jeremy. I used to think that was funny when I was a kid, which is kind of sad based on what the song's about. But the song Black as well is really good. Love this album top to bottom. It's a perfect album in my opinion. They were never known to be great guitarists and stuff. Eddie Vedder definitely had a distinct sound to his voice. But I just love Pearl Jam. They just had a really fun rockin' sound. They're just massive at the time, and I just love them. They were great. And number 1, of course, is Nevermind by Nirvana. What else could it be, guys? This is essentially the album of my youth. If I had to put one album as the, signify my young teenage years, between the ages of, 12 to 13, 14, 15, it would definitely be Nevermind. This is definitely the most listened to album from this list. I think overall this one in the 10, and probably Super Unknown, Dirt. Yeah, like I mean the top five are the ones I listen to like obsessively. But come on, like Smells Like Teen Spirit was a massive track. In Bloom, Come As You Are, Breed, Lithium, Polly, Drain You. Like almost every song was a single. One of my favorite albums of all time. I don't give a fuck if people say I'm a poser because still love grunge and like Nirvana and Nevermind. I think it's a masterpiece and it's a top album of all time for me. Always loved the scene, loved the sound. It kind of was my gateway into heavier music, but I still listen to it to this day. I'm not the type who kind of got into metal and I'm like, oh fuck, I never listened to grunge. It was garbage. Blah blah blah. Fuck that. I love grunge. Love listening to it. Don't. I'm not embarrassed in any way about listening to it even now. You like what you like, and I still like grunge. So thanks for watching, guys. Maybe let me know down below what subgenre I should do next, and keep it metal.